Oleksandr Usyk just beat Tyson Fury and became the undisputed heavyweight champion. And many of you have sent me clips like these and clips like these where he uses the kettlebell for his prep. Now, here's what I have to say. Do I think that the kettlebell was responsible or was the reason why Usyk beat Tyson Fury? Well, the answer is by unanimous decision, a heartfelt no. Of course not. The kettlebell is not that tool that you use for SPP exercises that can maybe give you an edge if you already have built the skill and you have lots of talent. Now let's take it a step back a little bit. Now, what I was looking at is the Soviet research on how these guys prepared their athletes in order to make them become machines. Because what they had to do is they had this small group or small pool of people that they had to choose from, and then they had to build machines, right? First of all, they wanted to beat Europe and the US, right, for the political reasons, and so they devised a system that was very powerful, very smart. And when the Soviet Union then fell apart, all these scientists, these Russian scientists, then went all over the world and shared their system, and then they elevated the level and game of sports. Now, what does the Soviet system say? It's the following. Number one, and Usyk, he's Ukrainian, so I believe that he's still under this guise of training. What did he use? I'm assuming he was using these 4 periods. Listen up. Period number 1 is the general physical preparatory period. Period number 2 is the specialized preparatory period. Period number 3 is the competitive period. And number 4 is the transitional period. Now, the kettlebell, I believe, is one of the best generalist tool ever. It builds muscle, it builds strength, it can boost your explosiveness, it can build cardiovascular endurance, it can improve your coordination. You only have one gym, it can elevate your fat burning potential. It's just a powerful tool, but it's not the best tool. It's the best generalist tool from my perspective. That's why it's so powerful for many over 40s, 50s, and 60s, because they say, bro, I've seen everything. I don't want to waste my time. I need something that I can do at home that doesn't cost me a lot of time, and I want to get a huge ROI for the time that I invest. Now, for a general physical preparation system, what does that mean? GPP means the following. Listen, the athlete spends no more than 20% playing their sport. For Usyk, that will be in the ring, while the remaining 80% will be spent at the weight room. All major joints, muscles, ligaments, and other structures receive excellent conditioning with special attention to making weak areas strong so that you are ready for the specialized physical preparatory period. Is the kettlebell a good tool for your GPP? Most definitely. Because in that area, you can boost everything that I just mentioned with one workout. And then of course, there's clean and press, or maybe even some juggling or some swings. Yes, that might make sense, even though when you look at the Soviet research, they never used kettlebells. However, we can also say that the kettlebell game wasn't as advanced as it is now. Now, once you've went through your GPP period, the next thing that happens is the specialized physical preparation. So the athlete is now switching gears. 80% of the workload is now very selective with an extremely high correlation to the athlete's specific sport. What does that mean? Usyk now doesn't just clean and press kettlebells. He's working on selective exercises to improve his sports movement. For example, if we know in a punch you have the triceps, the forearm, the biceps, you have the shoulder, you have the hips, then you have to devise an exercise where you can improve that the quickness, the readiness, the speed, the strength for these particular exercises. Maybe a jab is now different. I'm not a boxer, I don't know how that goes, but for these movement patterns, you have to then find a system where you can then replicate these movement patterns under load. But here comes another key. You don't just want to deadlift, bench, and squat all the time to bring these numbers up, because if you're too strong, then too much strength can then interfere with your skill. This is powerful. The good strength that you have to build up, you have to convert them then into your sport. Now with the SPP period, the volume, the workload increases. That's why your GPP in the beginning must be high. you must have a big GPP, a big engine to handle all the workload that you're facing now. And here's an example. An American football player under this regimen would do squats with fast upward motion, jumps out of the squat, split squat jumps, and bench step-ups to stimulate starting leg action. Explosiveness would be handled through depth jumps, which by the way was a system that was devised by Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky, called it the shock method. Repelling an opponent would be simulated with push-up jumps with a clap. All right, so now you understand what this system looks to a certain extent. Now for a boxer, of course, everything's different. Let's talk a little bit about the competitive period. Now you are undergoing a treatment where your body is now getting ready to the competitive environment. No holding back, balls to the walls, everything, get ready. Maybe the sparring in the boxing gets very intense. Maybe there's even a knockout to a certain extent, I don't know. But here's the interesting part. There's no more time dedicated to improving physical strength or level of fitness. Instead, it's all about refining your technique. And in the transitional period, that's the final one, then you're like, all right, thank you very much, bye-bye. I got a lot of shots to the dome. For example, with Usyk and Tyson Fury, I'm gonna play some chess and checkers now. I'm gonna play some volleyball. I'm gonna chill with my family. So you wanna take your brain off of the work that you just did in order to really cool down and then get maybe ready for the next GPP, SPP, and competitive period when the season starts or when you have a next fight. Harking back to the kettlebell and to these implements, do you really think that Cus D'Amato was talking to Mike Tyson and said, Mike, if you want to become a world champion, you got to bring your bench, deadlift, and squat numbers up. You got to do some swings, some explosive things, and some explosive snatches. Not at all. Mike was a beast. And what Cus had to do was refine technique, build that skill, and maybe they were using some specific exercises. For example, there's one specific exercise that comes to mind that Mike Tyson did, and that was the exercise where he was rolling around on the neck with all of his body's weight to thicken the neck and make sure when he gets punched that the neck is able to take these punches. That's maybe one of these specialized physical preparatory exercises that Mike was using. Usyk. Yes, he does some kettlebell stuff, but he maybe does it for the gram. He maybe does it for views. He maybe does it just for fun. Somebody's then recording it, and then somebody else takes it and says, all right, this is how Usyk prepares for the Tyson fight. That's not the case. At least that's not what I believe. And look at all these heavyweights. Even McGregor, Khabib, the Gracies. And I'm not a fighting guy, but if we mention these three categories of fighters, these three heavyweights, these killers, do you think that they were doing Turkish get-ups all the time? Maybe in their GPP, yes, but other than that, they were specializing on their skill. 80% in the ring or on the mat or in the cage. And then when they did strengthening exercises, they were very selective and specialized. So the trainer that I would love to talk to, and by the way, I've talked to some of these guys who gave me these recommendations. That's the reason why I'm telling you this, is I want to talk to the trainer of Khabib. I want to talk to the trainer of the Gracies. I want to talk to these guys, or all these killers, or Bas Rutten, when we talk about fighters, right? I want to talk to the trainers, but they don't have YouTube channels. They don't have Instagram. They don't have a program to sell. They focus on building their fighters. And then the fighter wins, so the coach gets a little bit of the credit, but then they focus on that next period. And YouTube, Instagram, and all that social media stuff is filled with people who tell you, well, the juggling exercise is the reason why Usyk is now able to punch Tyson and has great aim. Get out of here. I don't believe this for a second. And if that's the case, yes, all right, I stand corrected and take a huge step back. But I don't think that the kettlebell was vital in prepping and turning Usyk into this competitive athlete that he was, that beat Tyson Fury. And I'm a kettlebell guy. I love kettlebells. I think they're awesome. But here's what I don't like. When we take a tool and then we create it or build it into something that it is not. You can show me a hammer and tell me, all right, with this hammer, you can drill in that next nail into the wall that you have to hang up that frame. And I'm like, all right, I don't believe that, because that's a hammer. You do different things with a hammer. Now, like I said, the kettlebell's still awesome. Barbells are awesome. Everything's awesome, but it's specialized training with a high-level coach who understands these biomechanical aspects of the movements, of the sport-specific exercises and the sport-specific movements, the joint actions, the muscles involved, and then they maybe come up with an exercise that really helps you give that little percent, that little edge, that high level, that high caliber athletes on a very high competitive level need. With that being said, I'm not disrespecting anybody who's selling you programs that says, all right, if you do some kettlebell work, you might bring up your MMA game or whatever, because I believe that's the case when it comes to the GPP area, right? The GPP phase. But remember, the GPP is it's just there to build you up, and then the big phase comes afterwards. And you can be the best kettlebell sport or kettlebell athlete or push the heaviest kettlebells, you'll get knocked out cold if you fight somebody who's a very skilled boxer, because one thing doesn't equate to the other. So while the tool is awesome, and while I believe that maybe Usyk used some of them, I mean, he's Ukrainian, so he definitely probably used some kettlebells, it is not the major reason why he beat Tyson Fury. So that's what I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.